Hi, this is Nahid. You know, people always joke about how we make our New Year's resolutions in January and then we all break them by February. And by March, we've even forgotten what they were. Change is hard, but the reason it's hard is really because we're going about it the wrong way. Our bodies and our brains are actually designed to change and improve constantly. So typically the way most of us embark on this journey of change is we decide that we're going to do something and we muster up a lot of energy and motivation to get started on it. And that's something, let's just use exercise as an example. So let's say we decide that we're going to go to the gym 3 days a week, every week. And so maybe the first week we manage to go those 3 days. And maybe the second week we get 2 of those days. And then the following week, something else gets in the way. And so maybe only 2 days happened. And then by the time when we're messing up, let's say, more than half the time, we tend to throw up our hands in defeat and give up and fall back into our old patterns because it no longer feels energizing to move forward on this goal. It's like we're taking 3 steps backwards for every step forwards, and it's exhausting. This happens more often than not. We run out of willpower before we actually establish a change that sticks. So what I want to talk to you about today is how do we change that pattern? How do we actually work with our bodies and our brains to make the change process easier and something that will actually stick? So the first thing that you should know is that our brain resists any change that drains energy. And when you use willpower, you're using energy. And this is why once you've run out of that kind of initial motivation that comes from the excitement of starting something, typically people completely run out of energy and they stop because now your brain is resisting you. It doesn't want you to use so much energy that you don't have it available for other things during the day. So not only does our brain resist change, but our bodies also resist change because our bodies are driven by positive feelings. And our bodies are also driven by negative feelings. And we have these chains of behaviors that automatically happen when we're seeking feelings, either to get away from negative feelings or to go towards positive feelings. And when we start feeling negative because we're kind of getting into that phase of change we're trying to make where we're starting to mess up a little bit and we're getting frustrated with ourselves, that frustration actually causes us to resist it more because now it doesn't feel good to do the exercise or the diet or whatever it is that you were trying to do, because every time you think about it, you think about how much you're screwing up and it becomes a bad feeling. So then what we do is we avoid. So our brains resist change and our bodies resist change when we approach change with what I'll say willpower approach. So that approach that says no pain, no gain. I've got to work hard until this is ingrained. Now, that doesn't mean you don't put any effort into things, but there are select times that are more lined up with what works with your brains and with your bodies naturally. So let's think about this. Our brain and bodies want to change when it makes sense. So to our brain, draining our energy doesn't make sense. To our body, not feeling good doesn't make sense. What we want is to feel better and have more energy. That makes sense. So if we can design a change system that allows us to feel better and have more energy, then we've got a winning system, a system that will stick to until it becomes habitual. And that's what we're going for here. So think about it. When you're struggling all the time and you're pushing and you're using a lot of energy and willpower all the time, you're going to run out of energy and you're more likely than not going to end up quitting and failing. However, if you can find a way to be energized throughout the change process and also feel good throughout the change process, then you've got a strategy that will set you up for success. One of the most important parts of this is you can't say, well, I'll feel good once I've finished the change. You have to actually enjoy all of the steps. You have to be energized by the steps you're taking. So what most of us do is well, I've just got to buckle down and deal with all the pain, and then I'll feel better once I've achieved my goal. But maybe my goal is 30 days out or 90 days out. And that's usually not a winning formula. The winning formula is every step along the way, I want to be feeling really good. When I say feeling really good, I'm not talking again about completely avoiding it and not pushing yourself at all. There are times to push yourself, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward in the video. I wanted to bring forth one of the most famous models of change by William Bridges, but I can tell you that I know of several other change models and they all follow the same curve, but this one's pretty easy. It basically says that your change starts with endings and then it ends with your new beginning. That's not the conversation that's applicable today. What's applicable today is looking at this curve here. So typically when we start a change, we're excited about the change. We have a lot of energy around the change and a lot of motivation around the change. But as we get going on the change, it gets really tough. And we lose that initial excitement. And this has to do with every kind of change that is thrown at you, as well as change that you're trying to direct yourself. You go into this phase where everything gets hard. And that's because you've lost your initial excitement. And now you're actually trying to execute all your ideas, and that takes work. And the work isn't habitual yet. So each piece of the work takes a lot of energy. You can get through the middle part by making conscious decisions about how to make it less exhausting and how to keep your emotions high during the process. There are actually 5 steps that will ease your change process. In other words, keep your emotions high and keep your energy from falling too low. The first one is knowing your why. So your brain will resist anything that takes energy unless there's a very obvious reason why it's worth the effort. And so your why is this worth the effort? Step 2, you need a plan that is very clear about what the steps are. So a lot of people get excited about what they want to do, but they don't see exactly how to execute. They don't clearly see the steps to execute. And that's actually what holds them back. They don't clearly see those steps. The third thing you need is a routine. You want to be automating your behaviors, because the more automatic your behaviors are, the more habitual they are, the less energy they take. And if you can get the steps that you need to take to make this change happen into a routine that you enjoy, that feels easy, that feels automatic, that's like the golden key, because then you're doing those steps without even thinking. And over time, the change will naturally happen. The fourth step is to use visualization. I used to swim, and one of the things that we would do is envision our entire race. So from the moment that we dive into the pool, how many strokes, exactly how we actually imagine how it's going to feel to pull for each stroke, how long we're going to be pulling, how many strokes until the flip turn, and the entire race. So swimmers, Olympic swimmers, will have their races completely visually memorized, and then they'll just follow the vision, because the visual memory or the visual imagination of each of those steps, that helps ingrain the neural pathways that are going to create the automatic routine. And then the last step is to acknowledge small wins. So what you're doing, we've all heard about dopamine and how that reward system keeps us going. What you're doing when you acknowledge your small wins is you're engineering your own dopamine hit. So let's go into each of those steps just in a little teeny tiny more detail to clarify them for you. So your why should be something that really feels good. So an example might be, I had a friend that said, instead of just telling herself that she had to exercise, she started talking about how she wanted to be athletic. And every time she exercised, she said, I am an athlete. I am a strong athlete. I'm becoming stronger and I'm becoming more athletic. And that really felt good to her. And she could identify with that, instead of the struggle of beating herself up if she didn't exercise and telling herself she had to exercise and looking at exercise as this necessary evil in order to get in shape or to not put on too many pounds, which is how most people do it. She said, the more I exercise, the more I become this athletic person. And that's who I am, and that's who I want to be, is someone who is athletic and strong. You can come up with any type of vision. It just has to be exciting for you. I have a worksheet that goes along with this video. And one of the questions that I ask in this worksheet is to complete the sentence. As I work on this, as I progress on this, I am becoming more and more, or I'm getting better and better at. So that kind of gives you a little sentence to help you frame something really positive related to your goal. And you keep thinking that over and over again to counteract that negative judge that we have in our mind that's beating us up for all the ways that we're failing. All right, step 2, your plan. It's really important to know the steps. If you can't see yourself doing the steps, the confusion itself is going to drain you enough to have you not do anything. It's important to identify, as you're building up to this, what are the most important things? What are the things that are going to make the biggest difference? I would say pick no more than 3 to start with, especially if this is a hard change that you're trying to make. If you're trying to change jobs, let's say, having conversations with people about your background is probably in that top 20%, whereas rewriting your resume over and over again probably is not in your top 20%. Step 3, add new habits to existing routines. So any habit that you want to add, it's going to take a lot quicker if you are able to incorporate it into an existing routine. So for example, if I want to log my food every day, then I have a couple of ways that I can do it. I could say, okay, every evening after I brush my teeth, but before I start reading the book that I tend to read before I go to sleep every night, I get into bed, I pick up my computer or my phone, and I look at my my app that I'm logging my food on, and I log all my food. Or it could be that as part of my eating routine, when I have a snack or when I have a meal, I log as I'm washing my dishes or as I'm putting everything away and going to my next activity. So you can do whatever you want, but noticing how many routines you have during the day, even if they're little short routines, and then working these new behaviors into your routines is really important. What you want to do is make your habits and pick the top 3, no more, make them so consistent and so automatic that they're going to move you towards your desired result with less effort. Step 4, daydream, imagine, visualize. Even if you're completely exhausted and you haven't done anything that day that is remotely like what you want to be doing, if you lay in bed and think through the steps you'll take, you'll start doing them in no time. Believe it or not, even when you're tired, you can make progress by visualizing the steps one by one and visualizing yourself taking the steps. The next thing that's really important is rewards. Now, we've talked about, probably in other videos, how dopamine is not really about a reward after you've done something, but it's that sense of anticipation that I'm getting better, that I'm about to get my reward. And so this idea of setting up your positive excitement about your goals as, oh, I'm getting better and better at this, or I'm becoming more and more of an athlete, those kinds of things, that naturally triggers dopamine. So every time you're doing something, telling yourself, acknowledging that you're getting closer to your goal is the one thing that will trigger these dopamine receptors in your brain and actually give you natural motivation to keep doing what you were just doing. So that's really important. One thing that I try to share with people when they think about the whole process of getting themselves into habits is how they train Shamu at SeaWorld. If you've ever been to SeaWorld and seen a Shamu show, then typically you're going to notice that they talk about how they completely ignore the whale when the whale is not doing behaviors that they're trying to train, and then they give the whale treats as the whale does an approximation behavior. So let's say they want the whale to swim to the middle of the pool and then jump through the hoop. So the whale's just swimming around randomly, but anytime they get a little bit closer to the middle of the pool, they get a treat. And then what you'll notice is the whale starts swimming closer and closer to the middle of the pool. And then they just keep giving treats as it gets closer and closer to where they want the whale to be. And then they give treats when the whale goes up. And then when the whale goes higher up and higher up and higher up. And that's what you want to do for yourself. So reward small wins, reward for approximation. And for you and me, our reward, I mean, we could give ourselves cookies if we want, but typically the reward is going to be acknowledging that we're getting there, acknowledging that we're getting closer. If we just say to ourselves, wow, I'm getting closer, I'm getting better, I'm getting closer to this thing I really love, becoming more and more of the person I want to be, that's the thing that's going to trigger dopamine in us. So just keep in mind that change is easier when we work with the natural flows of our brains and bodies. No pain, no gain. People take it to an extreme. I can tell you the 2 times when you might want to struggle a bit. The first is just for a couple minutes to get yourself started. So you're trying to get a new routine going, you're feeling that internal resistance, you push yourself to get started. But a lot of times what works is, for example, if you're going on a run, just getting out the door. And if you make a deal with yourself, which is I'll get out the door, and if I get out the door and I still don't feel like running, I'll just walk to the mailbox and back and then crawl back in bed. And sometimes that will get you out the door. But the thing is you're ingraining that process of getting out the door. And so you may be horrible at running and, not run at all, but you get out the door 5 times a week and you just keep doing that. A couple of those times you're going to actually want to take a walk. And a couple of those times that walk's going to turn into a run. Pretty soon, you've got the getting yourself out the door part down. And then once you get going, your body's going to take over and you're going to start walking and you're going to start running. So when you want to use willpower is just those first couple minutes of getting going. The second time that you might want to use willpower is at what we call the mastery stage. So that is when you're trying to improve something, like if you're practicing piano and you want to become better. At the end of your practice session, when you're starting to get tired, if you can force yourself to work an extra 5 minutes or an extra 10 minutes, and what that does is it expands your comfort zone and it helps train your brain to get a little bit better. So you're not only doing things that you know, but you're doing the harder things that you don't know. But a little bit of willpower to get yourself going and a little bit of willpower at the end to get yourself doing just a little bit more than you've done before. Those are nice, appropriate times to use willpower, but notice that those are contained times and they don't completely deplete your energy. It's just a little bit of extra effort. That's an appropriate time to really push yourself. But if you push yourself the whole time, you're going to deplete yourself before you see any chance of success. So with that, thanks for engaging today. Subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying these videos. We have a lot of them. We're putting them out every couple weeks or so. And enjoy and have fun with this.